Hey guys, welcome to the Fantasy Points Tailgate National Championship Preview Show. My name is Josh Chevalier, and I got with me Kevin Coleman here. Kevin, how are you doing, man?
Hey man, I'm doing good. I'm excited. Tonight's the night we've all been waiting for. This whole extra week thing got me all thrown off with the NFL. I forgot today was the championship game, but I'm glad we're here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Are you having a dog in the fight tonight? No pun intended.
Well, I was a Michigan fan, Josh, so that did not turn out very
Oh,
well. But I'm a Bryce Young truther, so I'm tending to
okay.
lean that way because I love Bryce. He's from California, where I'm from. I've been watching him for a long time. I actually went to his high school games in Mater Dei a couple of times, so
No
I'm a big
way.
fan. I'm a big fan of Bryce, and I hope that he can pull it out tonight.
Okay. Well, good to hear. Good to hear. Glad we can both root against Georgia. So,
Yes.
not a big fan myself, but hey, Kevin, you want to tell people where they can find your work and what you got going on and things like that?
Yeah, you can just find me. I'm a featured Devy writer for Fantasy Pros, but at the same time, I have if you like Devy, we have a really good podcast called the Devy Royale. You can check that out. And if anything about Devy, that's kind of where you can find me there. And you can find me at Twitter at DuBois_22.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I love your work. Love what you guys got going on over there, man. And together, man, we completed quite the adventure, huh?
It was a lot of work. I don't think people realize how much time that took kind of diving in, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. If you guys don't know, Kevin and I both worked on the Bowl Guide with Wes Huber and others, and man, 43 games, including we did picks and player props and devy players, kind of along the way. Wes did most of that, and so did Kevin. So, man, it was awesome. But you're right, man. It was a lot of work. So, what have you been doing with your free time over the last week?
I'm teaching, so I'm back in school now. So
Okay.
it's a little bit less free time there, but just kind of enjoying it. We actually have a special project coming out for the Dev Royale that we've been working on, and always working, Josh. Always feels like I'm working.
Hey, the grind, gotta love it. So. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, I want to say thank you to all of our people that have been with us kind of along the way this year. I know we both did live streams throughout the year, and thank you guys for just joining us and you guys just being a part of what we're doing here and reading the DFS articles that we've been putting out and the Bowl Guide and all that. And so, just want again, huge shout out. Like none of this would be possible without you guys. So, thank you guys for that. One of the things that we had as an incentive to buy the Bowl Guide was a Trevor Lawrence autographed football, and so that I guess the first 100 that had bought the Bowl Guide were entered into this drawing, and so we actually have a winner. His name is Richard Penshorn. So Richard, if you are on the call, hey, look for or on the show, look for an email coming out or some contact. And thank you to Evan Sports Cards and Collectibles for being a part of us being able to give this away. So, Richard, congratulations, man. Hope you get some good use out of the ball, and hope T-Law just kills it in the NFL for you, so that can just increase in value. So, well, cool. Well, looking forward to tonight. Man, big game, fun game, and man, the first half of the show. We're gonna preview this national championship game, kind of talk about some of our keys to the game for each team. And then, then we're going to both kind of wrap it up and talk about, for the second half, really probably both of our favorite topic, which is devy. And I play a lot of college dynasty, Kevin. And so that's kind of my kind of venture into this. I'm into CTC right now, last year. So man, I'm looking forward to learning from you, but we're going to talk about some younger devy prospects and maybe some previewing of next year a little bit with some people to come up. So looking forward to that as well. But Kevin, man, what's your first overall thoughts and impressions of the game? And do you feel like the SEC championship game, is that going to factor in at all tonight, or is this just blank slate for both teams? What do you think?
It's hard to say. One of those things that for me, I read a good article today about Kirby Smart and how bad he wants to beat Saban. And, he hasn't won the last 5 games. And I think that's definitely got on there. And it reminded me of Lane Kiffin. He sent that baby daddy thing out about Kirby. And it was a real thing. Like, I think the SEC championship matters a little bit for Georgia's psyche, because they came in as that team and they were the favorites and everybody kind of thought that they were going to win. And you know what? Alabama physically dominated them and they got hit in the mouth. And so this is a huge game for Kirby. It's always been a joke with me too. I always mess around with Georgia fans because I have a lot of Georgia fans that are my friends, and I say, hey, Kirby can't beat Saban. Kirby can't beat Saban. But I think it does matter. I think that, who's going to come out tonight? I think Georgia's got to have a good first drive. And who is that guy going to be able to step up? And I think that matters. But Georgia's psyche really matters here. Like, if Kirby can't win this game, he'll never win a game against Saban as long as Saban is there, because he's got his best team. And this is kind of the team that we thought was going to win it all. The defense is in there. So I think psyche-wise, yeah, I think it matters. I don't know necessarily, Mechie being hurt. There's a lot of things that are a little bit of a difference there. But psyche, like, Georgia's got to be ready to play or they're going to get beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that side of the game, the psychology side of the game, is an important one that's just got to be factored in, right? Like, it's a big deal. And man, I love your point with all that stuff. And man, can he get over the hump? And including, like you talked about the last 5 games, like they've been winning in all 5 of those games at some point in that game, and they just choke. And one of the things that Wes and I pretty much all year, like we had the 1 week with DraftKings where they had Stetson Bennett early in the year at 4.5K against UAB, and Stetson Bennett went off. But other than that, we've kind of just said, like, man, Georgia's making a huge mistake going Stetson Bennett all year instead of getting JT Daniels back into the fold. And we're just not big Stetson Bennett fans. And I'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But I think his psyche is part of this conversation of, man, what's he going to do when he gets hit in the mouth again? Because he didn't respond well in that first game. And so that's going to be interesting to watch tonight as well. But we can get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so tonight, man, Lucas Oil Stadium, Indianapolis, Indiana, totals 52.5. The spread is Georgia favored by 3, which, I think to the average fan, and even me, like when I looked into that initially, I was like, man, like just feels like they just got blown out by 17. And here we are, they're favored by 3. Seems a little surprising, but one of my favorite guys is Bill Connolly in the college football industry. Just love his advanced stat stuff. And so I was reading some stuff by him, and he basically went through like every single advanced stats category. And it's like, all except like offensive S&P plus, like Georgia's got they are ranked higher, and, pretty similar strengths of schedule and all of that. And so I don't know, it's interesting going into tonight. Cause I think, I think from the psycho-emotional part of things, you look at Bama and you go, hey, they got the advantage, but then on paper you got Georgia. So it does seem like, man, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. But what are your keys to the game for Georgia? If you have like 3 keys, what do you think they are?
Yeah, so the first one I was looking at, and we talked about this on the show last week with the guys. I said, you know what, they got to turn red zone trips to touchdowns. So one of the biggest things they didn't do in the SEC championship game is when they got to the red zone, Alabama's defense didn't break. They bended and they got them into that area, and they didn't give up touchdowns. And I think that was massive. There was that drive where they had to kick a field goal, and I think if Georgia would have scored there, I think that they would have changed kind of the tone of the game. So that'll be interesting to see on that first drive tonight. Can they establish that? Can they get in the red zone and score? And then put some pressure on that offense? Because Alabama's offense has some question marks. So I think that's the biggest one for me. The other one is you got to limit Bryce, and you have to limit his output of what he did. Set an SEC record. We saw what he did against them before. And you know what? They don't really challenge the receivers at the line. And I do think that Alabama's receivers, especially Jamison, I know Jamison's fast, but what do we do if they have that press coverage against them? And I want to see them physically kind of dominate these guys. Like Slade Bolden is probably going to have a good game tonight. And if Slade's that guy, you're just like, he's out there. Like, that's great. And
he's the Stetson Bennett of Alabama wide receivers.
He is. And but those guys, like, let's challenge them, let's challenge them up front, see how good they are there, and challenge them with physicality, and don't let them get into their routes, especially with Mechie being hurt. Jakory Brooks is going to have a big game, like those guys, and see if we can get them off their game. So I think the defense is there. And then who's going to emerge in Georgia's receiving room? Like, is it going to just have to be the Brock Bowers and he's just going to have to be a god? Or can one of those guys step up? And is it going to be Burt McConkey? I still love George Pickens. I don't know if you were ever a George Pickens guy.
Oh, yeah.
I love George.
That's why I hate Stetson Bennett.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
killed
I
him
love
last
him.
year.
I love George. And, I was even saying like he could have a big game in these 2 games and he'd elevate his
Hmm.
draft stock. And he hadn't done that yet, but that's their big play guy. So if we can see one of those guys step up, they turn those offensive possessions into touchdowns, and then they can limit Bryce in a way that he's not going to be able to put up the numbers and they have to run, which is Georgia's strength. I feel like Georgia would come out on top there, but someone's going to have to step up in that receiving room. It cannot just be, we know Saban's going to game plan for Brock now. So who is going to step up on
Right.
that outside, and who's going to go over the top? Who's going to put pressure on that defense? I think that's the key.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah. I love all those keys. I think those are great aspects of the game. And it's like you're right. Like it feels like going into this game that Saban's going to lock in on Brock Bowers and go, okay, somebody else beat us.
Yeah.
And then can they? That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. My first key to this game is really what we talked about earlier. The psychological part of things, but really keeping pressure off of Stetson Bennett, both physically and psychologically. I looked at some numbers kind of going into this, and really, if you look at Stetson Bennett when he's got a clean pocket to work with, like his passer rating is unbelievable. It's a
Yeah.
126.6, which is about the same as Bryce Young. But then passer rating under pressure goes to 49.9, right? Which is just terrible. Like I'm not the king of like passer rating and understanding all of it, but I know that that's bad, and that it's a lot worse than 126.6. And you see that with Stetson Bennett kind of throughout the year. It's like when he's under pressure, like he just struggles. And so if Bama can get to him, then he's going to have problems all night. The second thing is not only physically do they need to keep the pressure off of Stetson Bennett, but also psychologically. And so I thought this was a really interesting stat. This is from Bill Connolly, but he talked about when Stetson Bennett over the last 2 years is able to build a first half lead and play with that lead. Here's his numbers: 61% completion rating, 15 yards per completion, 26% of his passes thrown are at or behind the line of scrimmage, and then a 3% interception rate, right? So he's got pretty decent numbers. But when it's tied or he's behind after halftime, which is only like 50 throws, so it's a small sample size, but it's a 49% completion percentage, 11.2 yards per completion, 21% are thrown at or behind the line of his balls, and then a 9% interception rate. And so you just kind of see him, he's like taking more risks downfield, but then he's also, man, he's turning it over. And what happened in the second half of that Alabama-Georgia game, man, he got some pressure on him, and he threw that pick six to, I think it was Jordan Battle. And man, that really just changed, that put the game away, essentially. So, again, this kind of goes with what Wes and I all year, we were like, man, Stetson Bennett, like it's going to come back. Like, can he win a national championship game? And to me, it's like, man, you got Bryce Young on one side, Heisman winner, and then Stetson Bennett. Like, man, that's just that's a big discrepancy in quarterbacks, in my opinion. And so I think that's going to be a big key for them. The second key, I think, is to get Brock Bowers involved early, right? Last game, he had 15 targets, 10 catches, and like 139 yards and a touchdown. But 13 of those targets came in the second half. And that's just too late, right? They're playing catch up at that point, and they're down. And so, man, if they can try to get Brock Bowers going early, like that would be huge for them. I think you're right. I think Saban's going to do everything he can in his power to say Brock Bowers don't beat me, which is part of the reason why I like Alabama tonight. But and then the last thing, man, is blitz. Like if Georgia's going to have a shot in this game, when they blitz Bryce Young last game, he went 9 of 20 for 91 yards. When they didn't blitz him, 18 of 24, 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. So it's like, man, that's the game essentially right there. And so I just think they're going to have to sell out to stop Bryce. And if they can do that, then I think they got a good shot. And Bryce, man, when he has been under pressure, like especially, LSU, Auburn, those last couple games where he just struggled before the SEC championship, like he did show that he was human. I think in some of those games when they had some pressure on him, although he still has a great passer rating and all that. But yeah, those are my keys. Blitz. Get Brock Bowers involved early. Keep the pressure off of Stetson Bennett. Any kind of thoughts on that stuff, or
Well,
if
yeah, I
not, we can
mean,
move to Bama.
yeah, I mean, we go to Bama. I'll talk. It's funny because you brought up the keys for Georgia are basically the opposite of me for Bama. Like Bama's got to do these things if they're going to
Yeah.
win. And so, like the
Yep.
biggest one I want to mention, they got to turn Stetson Bennett over. Like they're going to have to bring pressure, and they got to turn Stetson Bennett over. Like you mentioned, and I love that stat that you brought up. Yeah, it's a small sample size, but the reason why, I mean, let's be real, Georgia's schedule. Yeah, they're 13-1, but let's not pretend like they played a Clemson team now that we realize is not. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not Clemson. Their offense was bad. They played UAB, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. That's not a murderer's row there. They did beat Arkansas 37-0. But what we have found with Arkansas and even Auburn, even Kentucky, like those teams weren't necessarily the high defensive pressure teams that we were looking at. So, like when we're thinking about what Stetson was able to do, really, who's the best team Stetson beat? I guess it'd be Kentucky.
Yeah.
But that's not like, wow, like that doesn't stand out to me there. So like if you can move Stetson there, and the reason why he's been playing ahead is because they haven't really had to have him throw. And so you saw him have him throw in Alabama, and we saw the problem. Even Michigan got their butts kicked in the trenches. That game was over in the first quarter. Everybody knew it. I took a walk after the first quarter. I knew it was done. Like I knew, because you look at the trenches.
Yeah.
It wasn't, Stetson had a good game, but they didn't really need Stetson to have that good game. Like the way that game was going to go, they were going to get beat in the trenches anyway. So I think that Alabama can get after him. Now, if they get after him, I think he can make some mistakes. But that's where my key for Georgia is like, hey, who's going to step up? Because if they bring after, they bring that pressure. Who can step up in that receiving room to kind of mitigate that? So one of my Alabama ones is turn Stetson Bennett over. The other one is they said they have to protect Bryce Young. So you mentioned having to get after Bryce Young. I saw something that Kirby had talked about where they I think they only blitzed on, I think it was like 10 or 20, 15% of the plays or something like that, and that kind of hurt them. So if you're gonna blitz, you got to blitz more. But at the same time, I think you can, because if you look at Alabama's receiving room, we know they have Jamison, but after Jamison, the next secondary receiver after Mechie got hurt is Slade Bolden with 364 yards. Like it's not like what we saw the last few years with Judy, with Waddle, these other guys that we've seen consistently. Yeah. And I don't know about your feelings about Jaleel Billingsley, but he is not good. Jaleel Billingsley is a liability out there. And so I like Cameron Latou probably a little bit better in just terms of that. But again, you're not talking about solid athletes that can hurt Georgia. Georgia's got dudes everywhere on that defense that can definitely do those things. So can you protect Bryce long enough to be able to get him the ball out? So I do think it's there. And that's my other thing is someone's got to step up there. Who is it going to be? Who's that guy that we're going to be like, oh my gosh, Bolden had 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown? Or I think Latou, he's got great odds for like a touchdown scorer. I think Latou is a great kind of sneaky play for that, because they do give him goal line and red zone targets. So those are the guys that I'm looking at. Like, hey, can they kind of get in there? So I think that Alabama's got to keep Bryce upright, and they got to pressure Bennett. If they do those two things, I'm like you. I don't trust Stetson Bennett. Basically, he's Greg McElroy. I just don't know if he's any good. Like, he's the old Alabama version of this. Like, but we're also in 2022 now. Like, this is different offenses that we're supposed to have. So, like, I just don't trust Stetson. That's kind of where I lie.
Yeah. And I know this is a bad comparison, but I remember going into that. This is totally different teams, but Oklahoma UT earlier in the year, and I'm in Austin. And so I got vested interest in University of Texas, but I remember going into that game going like, man, if Spencer Rattler plays this whole game, like Texas is going to win.
Yeah.
And he didn't, unfortunately. And, Caleb Williams came in, and we know the story, but it's like, it feels like, man, if Stetson Bennett struggles early, do they go to JT Daniels? And, kind of like what happened a few years ago with Jalen Hurts and Tua, right? Where Jalen Hurts just struggled and then went to Tua, and then maybe that's a game changer. But that, honestly, that feels like it's one of the only ways that I don't see a Stetson Bennett team beating this Alabama team personally. But yeah, you never know. But yeah, so I saw you tweet out earlier about Jakory Brooks, and he has got the most to gain from tonight, potentially as a devy prospect. What do you think about him stepping up tonight? Do you think obviously he's a true freshman. Of course, we've seen true freshmen step up for Bama before in these situations, but what do you think about him tonight? You think he makes an impact in this game, or
I
what?
think he can. What we've seen from him in the last few weeks, and the thing that I watched about when I watched the film, I mean, he's had 9 receptions, 145 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then against Cincinnati, he added that big touchdown, and he had 66 yards. And I think the
Yeah,
biggest thing that I saw from him is that he's getting confident. Bryce has confidence in going his way now, and we saw it against Auburn. That's the only reason why they beat Auburn, and then we saw it here. So he's not afraid to go to him in big spots. So I do think that we could talk about him being there, and he's probably going to be. If Mechie leaves, which I don't know what he's going to declare or not, you could realistically see Brooks being the wide receiver 2 on that team. Or, I mean, if Mechie's still there, he's going to be wide receiver 2. They have a lot of holdovers and a lot of younger guys. Like Brooks is a very talented guy. So I could see them. The confidence thing is what building. And obviously Saban has confidence in him as well. So like if they're going to have confidence, you're going to see those guys kind of break out. And keep an eye on our guy, JoJo Earl. He's so fast. Like that guy. At some point, he's going to break one where we're like, oh, he got in there. Because if you watch his tape, he has some of the most fun tape I've ever seen on Huddle.
Yeah.
And if he can get him involved, I know they're using him in a lot of different ways. I know he's injured, but he's back. Like those guys, we could see realistically. Remember against that Georgia game, Alabama, they had a young kid named Najee Harris from Antioch. We didn't know who this kid was, and he came and played. Remember? Then they put in Tua. And we've seen this before. Saban plays these games to win. He doesn't play these games to lose. So he'll throw in whoever he thinks is the most talented guy in this situation.
Yeah, man. JoJo Earl. I love that guy. And I thought he was going to catch that ball in the last game too. I'm just waiting for his breakout game where he just shows the world just how sweet his feet are, man. Like he's just got some fun feet to watch. And but yeah, it's funny with Jakory Brooks. Like I remember, with the spring game, you had a G Hall go off, and people basically wrote Jakory Brooks off at that point, which I thought was funny because in the telecast of the spring game, Nick Saban's not a liar. He doesn't care. He's just like, hey, G Hall's got a lot to work on. Yeah, he's dominating, but be careful. And that's essentially kind of what played out this year. But Jakory Brooks, man, he's smooth, right? He's the number 2 overall wide receiver in the 2022 class, according to 247. And I mean, he played at IMG and did well there. And obviously he's from Miami. And he just crushed high school competition there. So we know what Miami wide receivers have done at Alabama, right? Like you got the Calvin Ridleys of the world. And, even before that you had, Mari Cooper, the list goes on. So Jakory Brooks, man, I would love to see him step up tonight. I do think it's interesting. Like he plays a different game than Mechie. And I loved what Mechie did. The balance between Mechie and Jameson Williams is incredible, right? Like once they figured it out that Mechie's going to run underneath routes and catch all that stuff, and Jameson's going to go long, it worked well. And it'll be interesting to see is Slay Bolden step up in that role and do that, or it isn't going to be interesting to see what the effect Mechie being out has on this game. Yeah. But I mean, Jakory Brooks, man, I mean he's another deep. He can get open deep, and if there's one thing that Bryce Young does elite, it's extend plays behind the pocket and then just rip it. So I don't know. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see. Any other keys on your side?
That's Alabama? Pretty much it for me for Alabama. Protect Bryce. Someone's going to step up and go after Bennett and see what you can do there. And if you turn him over twice, it's over. I don't see him. It may be one. He might be able to get away with one. I love the prop bet of 0.5 interceptions. I'm smashing it over on that.
It's funny. I'm in a group chat with a guy named Chris K and Mike Bainbridge, and Mike Bainbridge he's all into props right now. He's like, man, that half interception, man. If you guys can find that prop, go smash it because it's happening tonight for sure. But yeah, I'm with you, man. If they get pressure on Stetson Bennett, game's over. And Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Fedarian Mathis, they've just been killing it over the last half of the year. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think they went from the first half of the year averaging 2 sacks a game to 5 sacks over the last half. And so, yeah, I would expect them to be able to do it. I mean, this is why Nick Saban's the best coach of all time. So, in my opinion, but stats seem to back that up too. But yeah, I'm with you, man. And I think if Alabama, if they jump out to an early lead and they have that pressure, then it's going to be a really tough game for Bennett. If they throw in JT Daniels, that could be a difference maker, especially for Pickens. Because man, when Daniels played last year, Pickens crushed it over the last 2 or 3 games of the year or whatever he played. So, all right, predictions for the game, man. Okay, we'll do this. We're gonna do over under, then we'll do spread, and then we'll do winner of the game. So the over under for this is 52.5 points. What do you think? You think it's gonna go over or under?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think this is a perfect line. I hate Vegas because it's
They're
right
so
on
good.
it. I'm gonna say over. I'm gonna say just over, just because I think it can be like, I'm not a math, it's like 28-24. So I believe that's just over 52.5. So something like that. So I'm gonna go to over on this one.
Yeah. I'm with you. And I don't know if it's just because I like overs or if it's 41-24 last game or what. But man, 52.5 just for especially the Alabama offense. I mean, it just feels like, I don't know. It's been a long time since they're just getting shut down like that. I mean, I guess, we had the Auburn game and stuff like that. But I'm going to go over as well. I do think that line's good. But, man, 52.5 feels like with Bryce Young, I think they're going to go over that. But, okay, spread for this one. So I saw that it's up to, and I get most of my information from covers.com and what they're doing. So I got 3-point spread on this one, up from 2.5. So what do you think? 3-point spread in favor of Georgia.
I'm going to go Alabama still.
Okay.
I'm all right on Alabama. So I'm going to go Alabama as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty boring, and I'm going to go Alabama as well. Man, everything we've talked about, it comes down to me. It's like, man, Stetson Bennett and Bryce Young. And it's like, man, who's got, you got comparable teams on either side. And then you got, who's got the better quarterback, and it's not even close with Bryce Young. So, and then for my winners, Bama as well. What about you?
Bama. I'm going all Bama. So that means everybody out there is going to go Georgia. But I think Bama, I can't bet against Saban and Bryce. And I always quarterback. If you watch college football, it's about the quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. And if Stetson Bennett makes me look like an idiot tonight, then so be it. I'll shake his hand. Hey, good job, Stetson. You're the guy. But I can't bet on Stetson Bennett. So if that comes back to bite me in the butt, then I guess I'll just have to live with it.
Honestly, like it made me, when I see the spread and I look at it, I go, all right, am I an idiot? Like, it makes me feel like, oh, like Vegas is smart. I always assume Vegas is smarter than me. And so I'm just like, man, what am I, like, I'm clearly missing something, but man, my senses, and like you said, like quarterback wins, and Bryce Young is the definite better quarterback. And so, I guess we'll see what happens tonight. And the other thing is, man, I don't want, if Georgia wins, they're over the hump, and then, man, are they going to take over things? And you got Bama and Georgia. I don't want 2 like top dogs like that, because I want Michigan to have a shot, and I want Ohio State, and I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, so we think we have Mario Cristobal. So
you guys have been back for 21 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
every year, Miami is back, baby.
But now that we can actually pay players, we got a chance legally.
You were just doing it before. Yeah, you were just doing it a little bit before.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, let's switch gears to something that both of us love here. Both of us love. I mean, obviously, you make a career off of devy stuff, and I like to play in it. That's how Wes and I, really got to become good friends, was playing college fantasy football, dynasty stuff. And so I've fallen in love. All I do in the off season for my work or not work, but for for this hobby is I watch prospects all off season. That's how I study up for redraft and the rest of the stuff. So I love this stuff. I'm new to the C2C game. That's really what I've been playing. Some of that is because there's a little bit of an advantage with college football in there. So I'm playing that more. And but yeah, so I'm here mainly to learn, and then I'll give some opinions, and you can talk about how awful they are, and that's fine. And this is gonna be all like super basic, and I'm sorry, but like I didn't know how deep like really we could go, and it just seemed like a lot of information. So I'll let you kind of like, you can take this as your top guys, or you can talk about just your favorites or whatever you want to do with this. But I wanted to talk about basically your top devy players at each position. And again, have some fun with it. Take some liberty, because obviously we might be just talking about the same people over and over again. But So I want to go by position. So top favorite, whatever you want to do, player at QB. What you got?
Well, I gotta go Bryce Young. I mean, he was my
Yeah.
QB1 even going into this year with DJU. Like I was a big believer in Bryce still. I said, hey, we haven't seen Bryce yet. Let's relax on DJU. Let's see what Bryce can do. And I will say, like, I want everybody to know, like, if you don't know even what devy is, like, I'm really pushing for everybody to get into one league. If you play Dynasty, you should at least try to get into some devy stuff. And like, you don't need to know these dudes that I know. And Josh knows way more college football, probably like the other guys. I'm not in. I don't do fantasy college yet. I'm gonna do it this year because I have some people that are asking me to do it. But I know those guys, but like I don't know those deeper guys. But I think sometimes when people get into devy, they think they have to know all these guys. You really don't. You really just need to know 25. Like even then, like even if it's a small devy league, which I really want people to do like one round. Just do one round. As long as you know who Bryce and some of these guys are, you'll be able to handle it. But Bryce to me is the clear-cut QB1 of the class. He's got that Russell Wilson kind of. I know people talk about Russell and his ability to kind of extend plays. I absolutely love everything he brings to the table. He has arm strength. He has accuracy. And you know what? If he wins tonight, he could go down as one of the best maybe the best quarterback seasons we've seen. And I know that's, sacrilegious to say, but it's not. I mean, he won the Heisman. He without Bryce, they win 8 games this year. I don't care what anybody says. Like they've had a lot of problems on that offense. They've had a lot of problems defensively. You know what has kept them in games is Bryce. So I look at him as being the top prospect next year in a loaded class in 23 class. And he's really a tier in himself. I don't think CJ's close to him in his class. I think it's Bryce and everybody else.
Yeah. I love that he's gotten up to 195 pounds too. And coming in, I think it was 180. It's like 6'1". And man, he's so good. I remember watching him. I like to watch. I mean, I think everybody likes to watch it, but the All-American Bowl or the Under Armour game, just to see these guys go against the best of the best. And I remember him just flicking it. I think it was to Gary Bryant in that game. It was Gary Bryant or Josh Downs. Both made a big impression on me, but he just flicked it from 50 yards out. And I was like, oh, I don't need to see anything else. Like the accuracy and that type of just how quick his release was just incredible. So I'm with you. Bryce Young to me would be the top guy. Another guy I'll mention, and we all know him, is Caleb Williams. So I love Caleb Williams. I love his tools more than anything. I definitely think he has a lot to go as far as reading defenses and things like that. But he's going to go be with Lincoln Riley. And I think Lincoln Riley can develop him. But he was playing street ball out there this year. I don't know really what he was doing because there's a lot he's got to really improve on in his game. But a guy that can run like that and's got that type of arm strength, it's like you like to see those tools for sure.
Yeah, I love.
What do you think?
I didn't miss on Caleb. He came from a really predominant running offense in high school. And I wasn't like, I was like, hey, got to develop there. And I will say, you're right about Oklahoma's offense this year. It was not good. So like the one thing that everybody's loving Lincoln Riley and all this stuff, like it took a step back this year.
Yes.
It truly did. And people, I don't think necessarily realize that. So like Caleb's got a lot to do. And then now we just saw what happened with Rattler and DJU and these guys with devy quarterbacks. You got to be very careful. Like if he's going to go to USC, which it's starting to seem like with Jackson Dart getting himself in the transfer portal that he might go there. This kid's now a 19-year-old kid. He's going to his second school. He was in some press box last night during the Rams game. Like there's a lot of things about him that he's got to show maturity. And so I think you got to be a little nervous. Like these guys need some time to develop. And I think that he definitely does, but he's got the skills, man. He makes a couple throws off like his back foot and his ability to extend plays. You're just like, that's special. And like, they talk about it. I listen to, a lot of different podcasts, but my NFL podcast is Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah.
Yeah.
They talk about it all the time. I love them. And Bucky just says, you know what? They do a whole research thing on like guys that have it. And it's hard to qualify it, but they do all those Elite 11 things. And they said, man, Caleb has it. Like there's something with Caleb that when we talk to him, he has it. And so that makes my ears perk because they've always talked about these things and they're pretty good at it. I like Caleb. I'm interested to see where he goes and how he develops though. But I think he can be and that class isn't the greatest. That class for quarterbacks is kind of rough a little bit. There's some things they're going to have to pop out there. We're going to see some new guys pop up this year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting, and I do think it needs to be said about Lincoln Riley. When it comes to his guys that he's recruited, right? Like he
Yeah.
hasn't developed them.
No.
Like all the guys, and I know this is like popular. And everybody knows this, right? Like he's gotten all transfer guys that have been the number one recruits, or sorry, the number one draft picks. And so I am interested because Spencer Rattler did not develop that. I mean, everything that happened this year was happening last year in 2020. It's just
Yeah.
I think less people are watching because of COVID, but he couldn't read a defense, and so now, now you're going on, and Caleb
Yeah.
Williams I think is the same thing. Like he wasn't reading, and of course the offensive line wasn't good. There's all that stuff, but I do think there's something to be said about that with Lincoln Riley. Is like, are people figuring him out? And
Yeah.
and that'll be interesting to see, and we'll find out pretty quickly. So but yeah, next position, running back, and I love running back, so this is my favorite for sure. But what you got?
This is your forte. All right, so I'm on clear board here. I know I'm the outlier here. I personally believe Trevion Henderson is the best running back in college football. I know everybody's going to say Bijan, and I love Bijan Robinson, and I'm there, but he's special, and I hate it because he's a freaking Ohio State player, and I enjoy watching him play. His subtleness, his explosiveness. He's one of the fastest players in college football. He's dual threat everything, and I think he's quicker than Bijan. Like when you watch him play, they're very close, but I think that they're different styles, which is fine. But I think that Henderson, if I'm in a draft and I have the 101, I'm taking Henderson. Like I think that just based on his style of play, what he can do, I think that he's going to be. I know that all my injury guys out there, all my gurus, don't yell at me, Edwin, but I do think that like Henderson's profile is better than Bijan in terms of like injuries. And we haven't seen him get injured, and he got usage. He got so much usage this year, and he looked amazing throughout the season. It looked like he got stronger as he went. So to me, Henderson is my 101 from the running back position. But man, these classes are so fun coming up. So there's a lot of guys that can pop out here.
Yeah, man. Oh, I love Trevion. He actually won me a couple championships this year because I had him everywhere. And he's such a special talent. It'll be interesting to see what he actually runs in the 40. I mean, he's got to be low 4.4s, maybe high 4.3s.
Yeah.
Because it's just crazy. I mean, you watch even the first game of the season, right? Minnesota, he takes a swing pass.
Yes.
He's a true freshman, and he's just dusting people. And it's just like, man, if he gets any kind of space, he's gone. And I think that's the difference. Like I mean, Bijan, I love Bijan. Bijan does not have the top speed Bijan to me is going to run maybe mid 4.5s, honestly, maybe low 4.5s, but he's not a burner the way that people think. He's just so quick to me. I mean, he's so twitchy, and his subtle movements in the hole, like with Bijan, but Trevion, like, that top end speed, and just give him a little bit of space, and he's so much fun. And he's only 200 pounds right now, right? Like, what's he going to get up to? I think he's going to get up 210, 215 at least, right?
Yeah. I think 215 would probably be his ideal weight where he's going to be running at in that weight room. And he's got more. He's not one of those guys I'm worried about with build, because you can tell he's got build. He can put more muscle on. He's not like these guys that get a little, like Knighton from Miami, I'm a little worried about. I don't know if he's got build. Henderson has that build. And so I love watching him run every game except for one game. That's pretty much it. But it's funny. I was in a championship, and I had to start him against Michigan. So I was in this weird, like, okay, I hope Michigan wins. And he did well. And then we won. I was like, all right, perfect. But he, to me, in C2C, and I don't see how he's not a top 5 pick in college fantasy. C2C.
Yeah. Now, I will say this, man, and I don't know, again, you can push back on this, and you kind of talked about the injury stuff and that he's got a better injury profile, which I think is true overall. One of the things that I didn't like from Trevion this year, and I watched a lot, is that he seemed to get nicked up in games, and I couldn't tell. Again, like some of those games, it's like they were going to be blowouts. They didn't need him, right? And so they just took him out. But he would come off the field with these like weird injuries, or he'd be like raving in pain on the sidelines, and then you like pop up and he'd be in the game like 2 series later. But I'm like, what? Like that happened in a bowl game, but it happened 3 or 4 times throughout the year. And there's just some guys like CJ Verdell that like they get knocked out during the games and then they come back the next week. And for me, it's like, okay, is that like what was it with Trevion this year? Was it blowouts? Was it like he's just dramatic and he just comes back in the game and he's fine? Because it didn't seem to like affect him long term. But like what is that him being LeBron James? Like, I don't know. That's the only part of the game for me that I have like a question mark on him of like, is he tough? Like, is he tough as a running back? Because everything else is just amazing. But
I mean, it seems like he is. I mean, if you look at what he did against Tulsa, he had 24 carries and then 28 against Penn State. I thought his best game was that Penn State game. In my opinion, when he played against Penn State and what he was able to kind of do and go through, like he did fantastic. And then, I mean, the short work he did against Rutgers, 8 carries at 71 yards. That's for our producer, 1 touchdown. But yeah, you look at like what he was able to do. Like, I think he's special in that area. It's pass catching though. He hit 312 yards receiving this year, and he's a receiver. He's not a swing past Brian Robinson type of kid. Like, he can run routes and he's got good hands, and I think he elevated himself there. So I thought that Henderson looked good, and again, I think the injuries thing you never really can judge. But I mean, Bijan had some real injuries, like that his arm, his other stuff that he had. So even though he kind of came out and threw the point, when they went to him, that's when their season changed. Like when they gave him that rock, and he's listed at 210 actually. So if there's a way he can get to 220, that would be ideal for me personally.
Trevion's listed at 210.
Yeah.
Dang.
And listed
I didn't realize. Okay, because I had looked and I thought it was 200, but man, if he's at 210, like that's incredible. Because he doesn't look 210.
No,
obviously you're right. He has the frame to get up. But he looks like he's 200 pounds right now. Yeah. And so it's like, man, if he's already 210, like 215 is easy for him. Oh, yeah. Like,
then that's a one in a lifetime type. I mean, this kid is that good.
Yeah. Cause I think with Bijan, is like, he's my favorite guy. I kind of love that guy. But again, how are people going to react when they see he runs a 4.5? Because I think right now people think he runs like 4.3s or something, like he's Saquon Barkley, and he's not. Like, no. That's not his game. He gets caught from behind. And so I'm curious to see if people are going to poo-poo on Bijan a little bit when he comes out and he tests and all that stuff, because I don't think people realize right now that
analytics guys are not going to like Bijan as much as I think film guys. I think that'll be one of those fun things that I won't get involved in, but I'll watch from the distance.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. I think can't go wrong with either one. The other guy I'd mention here is Jamir Gibbs, and it'll be really fun to see if he can gain some weight, because I just can't believe he's still listed at 200 pounds, and that's pretty. He seems like he's got the frame. Talking about frame with those legs, like he seems like he can get up to 210, 215 too, but he hasn't. So it's like, is he not working in the weight room? Like, what's going like? So I'm interested to see at Bama, can he run between the tackles? And can he gain 10 to 15 pounds? And if he can, like that dude's
he's special.
I mean, he's Alvin Kamara, but faster, in my opinion. So anyways, okay, let's move on to wide receiver. And what you got here? I'm curious to see, because wide receiver can be all over the place. So what you got at wide receiver?
Mine is JSN, unfortunately, from Ohio State as well. Jackson Smith-Njigba. It's well documented that I've loved JSN before it was cool. Okay. Like before all these people jumped on the Jackson Smith-Njigba train. I actually said he was going to be the wide receiver 2 on Ohio State this year, and I got laughed at by my boy Devy Kane. So I'd like Kane to know I was right, because I thought he was better than Olave. I really did. Yeah. And the thing about him, he went to one of the toughest divisions in Texas football in high school, the 5A program that he was at, and he broke the receiving yards record. He is special. And when you're watching him play, I think that he's going to – I love Kayshon Boutte. I love Jackson Smith. Now, so I am going a little take lock with JSN. I know I'm a little hot and heavy there. Boutte is a stud too. And like when you're talking about both these guys, I think they're in a clear tier. But I think that tier is closer than what people want to admit. So I'm a JSN guy. but I also love Boutte. But I think JSN to me right now is special. And what he's able to do next year in college football, that dude is going to go off because he's going to be with Stroud in that offense, and you're going to want everybody on that offense, but especially him because he's going to get targeted like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. He's my wide receiver 1 in CFF next year.
Yeah.
And that's not surprising, right? After what he did in the bowl game. So it's not a hot take, but I mean, to why I'm with you, man. I think he's the top devy wide receiver too. And I think you just watch that Utah defense is good.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really good defense. And the way that he's able to get separation in his routes is ridiculous. And man, and do you know Matt Wisbey at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I know Matt.
Okay. So him and I are like, we DM all the time and we do C2C leagues together and all that. And so he was talking about JSN before the season and just like, this is the best of the 3 wide receivers between Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And you know, honestly, for Dynasty CFF, like if there's like 3 dudes in a wide receiver room that are that closely, ranked in the same class. I mean, I'm not even like really looking at it. Like, so with him and Julian Fleming and all that, like I didn't look too much, but like, man, JSN just caught my eye like this year in ways that like, yeah, he's got to be the top devy wide receiver. Obviously, Kayshon Boutte, like he's special too, elite speed, kind of all that stuff. But JSN, man, I don't like him and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to be incredible to watch next year, and the way they're going to complement each other in their games. Like I'm a huge Marvin Harrison Jr. fan, and I mean. Take a guy that learned how to run routes like his dad, but give him 3 inches and 45 pounds. Like what?
Yeah.
Like that's going to be incredible. But anyways, like you're right. Like that whole offense is just going to be a cheat code next year. So, okay. Tight ends here. We got, Who's your top tight end for next year?
Yeah. You know, I'm still sticking with Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. I know Brock is that guy for a lot of guys, but Mayer does a lot of good things well. And I think that in this new offense without Brian Kelly, I do think that we're going to see kind of maybe them open it up and use their positional players a little bit more. And I do think Mayer is going to be on the receiving end of some of that. And I do think that we're going to see maybe him more as a receiver. But the thing about Mayer, he's a hell of a blocker. Like he does everything. So when you're looking at that tight end position, which I think is really hard to sometimes in devy tight ends, especially if it's not tight end premium, I don't really touch tight ends because I'm not going to worry about it. I feel like it's a reach on most of these guys, especially like look at Jaleel. He was going tight end 3 in a lot of drafts this last year. And that, so I think Mayer can definitely elevate himself there. So it's really between Mayer and Bauer, in my opinion. And I think Mayer just tips the scale for me a little bit more because he's going to be eligible quicker in devy. And I do think that he can have a value and he's going to get probably 1st round draft capital. I'd be very surprised if Mayer doesn't. Someone's going to draft Michael Mayer in the 1st round.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant to mute the mic there and it didn't work in time. I'm actually recovering from COVID. Got COVID last Wednesday, so here we are. So it's Omicron. It's been pretty light, so pretty asymptomatic. But sorry about that. But yeah, man, Michael Mayer. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think part of it too. I know you don't have to be 6'5" as a tight end in the NFL, but I like. 6'5" tight ends and Michael Mayer. You're right, the blocking. He's just more complete. Less question marks for him, right, than for Brock Bowers. But Brock Bowers would be number 2 for sure. Okay, so a couple of things to wrap this up. We got a few different kind of quick categories here. But who's your favorite devy player overall?
JSN. JSN's my guy. I'm going with him. Yeah. It's so hard. If he was on any other team, I'd have a jersey, but I just can't do it. But to me, it's one of those guys, when I first started getting this a couple of years ago, I've only really been doing like analyst stuff. I mean, I've been playing for a long time. JSN was one of the first like profiles I wrote. And I said, hey, watch for this guy. Like this kid is special. I watched his huddle tape like we all do because we're all degenerates. And he was someone that I pinpointed. So he has a special place in my heart. So JSN is my favorite devy player.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about any guys like not on this list that you would say or that you didn't list already?
This is a kid. He's my sleeper too. But Nathaniel Dell from Houston.
Yes.
You probably, from a college football perspective and fantasy perspective, like this
Yeah.
kid's good. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
I know he's only 155 pounds, and I wish I was only 155 pounds. Like, I
Yeah.
really do. Like, I wish I had his, but he has been, I wrote about him in my Devy Sleeper article that's coming out next couple of weeks. If he can get a little bit, it's 170. Like, if he can get to 170, 5'10", 170 kid from Houston, 1,300 yards receiving this year. He's looked great. He's twitchy. He gets in and out of routes.
Yeah.
He fits the NFL. Like, what the NFL has gone to, the prototypical player is Nathaniel. So, like, he's really kind of, he's got great ADP. I think it's 19th round right now from the last mock I did. Oof. So that's in those kind of formats. I like Nathaniel. I think Nathaniel could be really good.
Yeah, and he's great in like a TCC, right? Because he's going to give you college production, but also, man, if he's going, even if he's going the 15th, 10th round, like that's still great value for a guy like that. I wonder what his 100. Do you know what his 100-meter is or 40 time? Have you ever?
I do.
I mean, he's fast. I mean, he's got to be below 10.8. He's got to be below the elite mark in the 100.
I know he has I know he had a track meet, and I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, while you're looking that up, I'll talk about my favorite Devy play. I got a few, man, but Xavier Worthy, man, from Texas, like I love the way he was able to do this last year. I mean, he ran a 10.55 in the 100-meter. That's under the 10.8 100 meters elite category. So, and we just saw what he did as a true freshman. He like Nathaniel Dell, like he's got to gain some weight. So he's not putting in my top categories yet. So I want to see him get up to 175, 180. If he get up to 180 and maintain some speed, holy cow. Yeah. But Xavier Worthy, man, he can run routes. He can deep, short. So, yeah, I like him a lot. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. is another one that I wish he didn't go off in the bowl game. Because I feel like it would have depressed his value. And it's it's like, man, 3 touchdowns, 70 yards, and I think he's gonna be a fun one to watch next year. So yeah. Did you find anything on any 100-meter times? Or?
Okay. I cannot find on there. He's fast, guys. He's very, very fast. Like I have a feeling like he's good. Twitchy. He fits the NFL mold 100%.
And if you're familiar with like a Calvin Austin from Memphis, right? Like it's that type of speed, right? Like it's elite track speed, probably running 10.6, 10.7 in the 100 meters. So yeah, Nathaniel Dell. Awesome. I love that you did that one. Okay. Any other sleeper other than Nathaniel that you want to give us?
A guy that I've been kind of measuring a little bit, and I love Jaylen Knighton from Miami. I've always kind of been a Knighton guy. You're a Miami guy. Like we had a startup a few years ago with all the big guys in the program. And I took Knighton over Chaney and then over why can I not think of the other freshman at the time? Well, you should know. Who's the backup running back that got hurt?
There's Cam Harris.
Harris. Chaney, Cam Harris, and them. I basically took Knighton over all those guys because you just saw something special with him. I thought he had some good usage this year. He fell off a little bit towards the end. Even though his size is at 190, like if he's that guy, he kind of reminds me of James Cook in a way. Like if he can kind of be that guy receiving threat, if he can maybe work his way up into like 3rd round draft capital, that's what you would hope for. But probably 4th round is where I have him. I think middle 4th I have him right now in my projections. But I like him. I don't know, there was something about him. I always get made fun of on the show because I love these 190-pound running backs. But I like him. Like there's something about him that I love his mold. It seems like he's maturing a little bit. And so it'll be interesting to see what he does at Cristobal though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, we saw and I know it's not going to be the same OC because it won't be Joe Moorhead, but we did see what they did with Travis there at, that's a perfect honestly, perfect comparison to a Jaylen Knighton in some ways. So as far as where they win, I like that a lot. Jaylen Knighton, sleeper for me, and this is real sleeper. I'm going to look real dumb potentially in a year, but a guy that I had even coming into this year that I thought could go off, and he did, was Devin Leary from NC State.
Okay.
He's a QB, 6'1", 212 pounds there at NC State. He's not a runner, and but he's not a statue either. But I mean, he had 3,400 yards, 35 touchdowns, I think, 35, and I think 5 interceptions. So had a good touchdown to interception ratio. He's got a strong arm, and so I'm really interested to see where I think if he would have gone into the draft year, he got drafted maybe 5th, 6th round. So like, man, what can he do this year? I think he's got some guys that are returning there at NC State. But I like him. I think he's a guy that could definitely rise up some draft boards. I wish he was 6'2" or 6'3". I think that would help him with where he wins, like what he's good at,
Yeah.
He needs to be a little bit taller. So, and I'm big on like how does a guy win, right? Like, so Marvin Harrison, he's not a burner, but that's okay. That's not how he wins. He wins with routes, and he's a bigger guy. So Devin Leary, if he was 6'2", 6'3", he wouldn't be in the sleeper category. So, but he's a guy, man. I think he's gonna make NFL rosters, and we'll see what he can do with it. But all right, last thing, and then we'll get out of here. Then you got a hard stop here in a couple minutes. But favorite incoming freshman?
So there's a kid that I really like. His name is Nicholas Singleton, running back going to Penn State. This kid is like what I thought Trevion Henderson was going to be last year. Like, I didn't mind reaching for Trevion Henderson in my drafts. And it's funny you brought up our boy Matt, because I took Trevion at the 110 in a league, and he thought it was the dumbest pick ever, and he made fun of me about it. And then now it looks a little different now, because he had said, oh, he's not even going to get any run. He's not. And I said, talent wins out, man. And he is talented. And I said, and I can see the same kind of thing with Nicholas. Like, he's fast. He can catch balls. He's probably the best running back as soon as he steps foot on Penn State's campus next year. I don't care about these other guys that they have there, these other guys that have popped up. He is the best athlete. So if Franklin wants to win, he's going to have to put him on the field. And so I think I'm going to have the same kind of trajectory as Henderson. So if you can grab Singleton, that's a guy that I really like. And I love Raleek Brown from Mater Dei going to USC.
Yeah.
I really liked him. I know he's small, but you know me, I love my small guys. But I think that he can be used in two different ways. Receiver, I love him as a college asset. Devy's still time to tell, but college-wise, I do think he's going to get some run next year. So those two guys are on my radar.
Yeah, for sure, especially with running back Ingram from Keontae Ingram. Yeah. With him going pro for sure. Nicholas Singleton, he's one of the guys I have listed here as my favorites. Man, Jonathan Taylor reincarnate to me.
Yeah.
Like he wins in the same ways. It'll be interesting to see how quickly he can get up to speed. But I mean, I like Katron Allen coming in there too at Penn State, like from IMG. He impressed me in the Under Armour All-American game. But part of that is that I was just glad he did so well and Branson Robinson didn't from the Georgia guy coming. I'm not a big fan, so we can talk about that another time. But again, I don't like the way he won in high school, and I don't think it translates. But all right, my guy here, since you took Nicholas Singleton, would be Cade Klubnik. So I love Cade. Again, I'm from Austin, so I understand. I know the players he played against here, and just consistently beat Quinn Ewers in high school, and then goes and win Elite 11. Whenever the lights are the brightest, that dude just shows up. MVP of the game, Army All-American game. So Cade Klubnik, I mean, I could see him coming in and winning that job. Maybe not right away, because it seems like DJU's got some preferential, like Dabo loves DJ, and he seems to be a pretty faithful guy. So, but Cade, man, Cade has all the tools, and I definitely think he's one of the next big guys. So, all right. Well, that's all we got, man. Kevin, this was so much fun, dude. I really appreciate you hopping on and doing this with me. And thanks for doing the bowl guide together. And I look forward to hopping on and talking Devy and C2C and whatever we can talk about this offseason in different formats. So appreciate you guys coming on. And thank you guys for watching us, and have a great season. And man, hopefully Stetson Bennett doesn't make us look stupid tonight. See y'all.